Hey, I just wanted to touch on something that I was discussing with another trainer yesterday, and it was a really interesting conversation that we were having about how it's really great. Got a bit of a croaky throat today, sorry. It's really great that there's a real trend towards the shift towards positive reinforcement is really happening. That clients are asking far more questions about how we train their dogs before they decide to book with us. Great. It's something that I encourage people to do a lot because of really awful stories that I've heard about people having trainers in their home and then finding themselves in a situation where the trainer has used aversives and they felt uncomfortable and not able to say, actually, get out of my house and don't touch my dog like that. So it's really great that these people are asking questions like, are you going to be kind to my dog? Are you using prong collars? Are you using e-collars? And trying to be more informed, and they want their dog to be trained ethically and positively. So that's great that there's more awareness out there and that people are definitely making that choice to go for those type of trainers. Brilliant. However, one thing that I I have noticed is that often a lot of the people that are saying all of those things, we want our dog to be trained ethically, we want our dog to be treated kindly, we want to be positive, they simultaneously have a real issue with using food. So I think as trainers we need to be really trying to educate our clients about the importance of using food, why food's really useful to us. Most dogs inherently like food, even dogs that aren't particularly food motivated. Hey, Flame. Even dogs that aren't particularly food motivated, at some point in the day they're going to be hungry, and we can harness that and use food as a reinforcer. We can pair food with other life rewards if we're doing recall, release back into the environment, for example, or pair it with toys if we don't want to have food around on us all the time. Absolutely fine, not a problem. But there is going to have to be reinforcement of some kind for that behaviour to remain. And explaining to clients really clearly that initially when we train anything to a dog, especially if we're trying to modify behaviour, high rate of reinforcement initially, because that's how we teach them, right? To make those behaviours stronger, we move to variable reinforcement, so the food will become lesser in any case. And that, you know, our long-term goal is to get to a point where we're not using food all the time. You know, with my older dogs, for example, I very rarely reward with food. Partly because two of them are more toy motivated, and the older one is very reliable in her behaviour. So she's not toy motivated at all, but she is food motivated. So for her, I would probably give her 6 treats when we're out for, say, maybe 40 minutes. And I don't have an issue with that. But I do think it's really interesting the way that people have an issue with paying their dogs for good behaviour, and I think we need to kind of try and shift that outlook on it really, and to be really explaining to people, look, we're not bribing these dogs, we are rewarding them for making the right choices and for doing what we've asked them to do, and our long-term goal is to phase it out so that we're not using it as much as we are. But that reinforcement does still need to remain on some level for that behaviour to also remain. You know, dogs do what works, and if they're rewarded for something, they're likely to do it again. Yeah, so I think it was interesting conversation anyway, how it's great that people definitely don't want to use aversives, which is obviously brilliant. And that people are far more educated about that, just the general public, not just us as trainers, but that they do appear to have an issue with being reliant on food. So I think for us as trainers, we need to try and be helping them to understand how to use food effectively and how to move on to a varied reinforcement schedule effectively, and then how to lessen down the reliance on treats even further, so that these people aren't feeling like, okay, well, I've paid you to train my dog and I'm just feed. Our aim should always to be getting the dog as reliable as possible, and intermittently rewarding, and pairing rewards with life rewards and other things like physical affection, but also to try and change that client's mindset a little bit about, actually, would you work for free? We've done another video on this. You know, would you work for free? What's the problem with paying your dog? I don't have an issue with having dog treats on me all the time. Doesn't always have to be really high value chicken or meat. Sometimes I tend to use a lot of a product called Platinum, which is it's actually a kibble, but I wouldn't feed it as, I don't personally feed it as a kibble. You can do, but I don't. I use it as training treats because I can break each piece up into several bits. Much like a lot of people do with Ziwi Peak, but it's actually more economical than Ziwi Peak, and it's good quality food. But I've got no problems with just having a few of those in my pocket so that I can reward a dog when it's done something. It also, having food on us, it also gives us the opportunity to, if a behaviour presents itself, to be able to capture it and reward it, and then work on it later on to strengthen that behaviour. You know, for example, if a dog were to jump up onto a tree stump, just something random that's just popped into my head, then we could mark that and reward it, and then we could start teaching a dog to jump up on other items, platforms, etc. Having food on us at all times enables us to capture moments in time without having to set them up, and reward them, and potentially use that as a training opportunity later down the line for trick training or anything, you know. Often I train a lot out in the environment, you know, well, not often, always, because I like to use the environment to my advantage, especially when I'm trick training. You know, if I'm teaching Elsa how to jump over a tree branch, so I don't have much agility equipment. I have a few bits and pieces, but actually I just use the trees that are in the forest, tree stumps, to teach dogs to walk backwards onto a platform, and it just mixes up your walk and makes your walk more exciting. So yeah, don't be stingy. Feed your dog for making the right choices, and also try and really educate, if you're a trainer, really try and educate your clients about why we use food, why it's not a bad thing to use food, and teach them how to phase it out so that they don't feel that they've paid you X amount of money just to have a treat pouch on them all the time, because it's actually about more than that. And I think when people appreciate how to use food as a really powerful tool, they're not going to feel like they're bribing their dogs. They're going to feel like they are rewarding their dogs for making the right choices. So yeah, that's just me sharing a conversation that I had with somebody else, and I thought you might find it interesting. Have a good day.